Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Mario So, and today's video we're going to see how we can turn this 7-year-old camera from looking like this to this. So how are you all doing today? It's great to see you back here. My name is Mario So, and I create weekly content on filmmaking, photography, gear review, and all of that fun stuff. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that'll be greatly appreciated. So in today's video, I wanted to give you a few tips on how you can make an old camera look better. And the tips I'll be giving you in this video do not just apply to this camera in specific, but any other old camera that you have lying around that it's able to record video. So today we're going to be working with this Sony a5000 camera that came out in 2014. And right now I think you can find it in the used market for about $400. And we'll also be working with the kit lens. This lens is 16 to 50 millimeter with an aperture of 3.5 to 5.6. With some of the tips I'll be giving you, I'll be trying to stay as budget as possible, especially for you if you're starting out and you don't yet have a budget to get more expensive equipment, but you want to get started in creating good quality YouTube videos or any video for that matter. And as I go over some of these tips, I'm going to show you what the footage looks like from this camera. The first thing that you need to pay attention to create a better image out of any camera that you're using is the lighting. So having good lighting is going to vastly increase the quality and the production value of your video, even if you're shooting on a cheaper camera. This is what it looks like right now from the Sony a5000 and the audio being recorded directly in camera. So there's a few things we're going to do to fix this in terms of lighting. So what we're going to do now to improve the lighting is to use a cheap pocket LED light. This is the Aperture M9, and we're gonna put this in over here and I'll show you what it looks like on this camera. But before we do that, there's one thing that we have to take care of, which is these lights. It's a very good practice that whenever you're filming anything to shut off all the house lights, because they're usually not that pleasant and they don't look nice, and the color cast and everything is just all over the place. So the best thing to do is turn them off, bring in your own lighting, or use natural lighting, which I'll show you in a bit. So these are gonna go off. All right, so this is what that looks like. This light looks like. So in my opinion, this already looks a lot better than what we had with the house lights, but it's still a little bit harsh. Then we're going to be bringing in the softbox to improve the lighting, to make it a little softer, to make it more pleasant. I also forgot to mention that the Aperture M9 is about $50. There's a budget option for a light. You could use it as a key light, as I'm demonstrating today. To get started, it will be a great choice. And to soften that light, I'm going to be using this softbox by Camera R, which I talked about in a previous video. I'll be linking it up here if you want to check it out. But what this is going to do is going to soften that light coming from here, hitting me. So what I've done with this light is just put it to the side, a little bit higher than me, and then just shooting down this way. What I did was just put this in front of the pocket light, and right away you can see that the lighting is a lot softer on me, making the overall image a lot more pleasing, and it just looks nicer. And this softbox is about $50 or under, so you're able to get these things to get started if you don't have a huge budget to get lighting that's expensive. So get started with lighting. It's going to increase the production value of your video very quickly. The next tip I wanted to give you is to pay attention to your audio. So right now the audio that you're hearing is being recorded directly from the onboard mic on the 7-year-old camera. So let's switch back to my other microphone first so you're able to hear what I want to say about audio first before we jump into this, how we can fix this. Audio is really important, and it's going to break or make your video. Most of the time people are more forgiving if they see video that is not high quality, but they're less forgiving if the audio is bad. So audio makes 50%, if not more, the experience of someone watching a video. Even if you're shooting on your phone, if you have good audio, people are going to be less forgiving on that video quality. So the thing that you want to do to improve the sound quality out of your camera right now is not to use the onboard mic on your camera body, but instead get an external microphone that you can use. This camera does not have a mic input, so I'm not going to be able to record good audio directly from this camera. If your camera has a mic input, then the easiest thing to do is just to get a shotgun mic. There's a lot of budget options available out there. I'll be linking a few in the description below if you want to check them out. But if your camera is too old or it does not have a mic input like this one thing you can do is get yourself a lavalier mic or a lapel mic like the one I'm using here and connect that to an external audio recorder. That could either be even your phone or an external audio recorder like the Zoom H1N, for example. This is going to require one more step in the editing process though. You're going to have to sync and match that audio. These days though, that syncing of the audio is quite simple. Just make sure that you keep recording audio on your camera so that you can use the audio from that camera footage to be synced into the audio file that you're recording separately. This is what the audio sounds like being recorded on the onboard mic on this camera. This is what it sounds like with a lavalier microphone. You can tell that the difference is vast. It's really night and day literally. So make sure you have good audio. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is add depth and create depth in your scene. Right now you can see that I'm right against my shelf here and there isn't that much separation between me and that background. Adding a little bit of separation is going to make your shot a lot nicer. Even if you are in a small space, try to create a little bit more separation between you and your background. So let's move myself a little bit forward and this camera back to create more separation between me and this shelf, and we'll see what that looks like. So this is what it looks like after adding a little bit more separation between me and the background. And another benefit of creating more depth in your scene is because it'll be easier for you to get a blurrier background, even if you have a kit lens like the one I'm using right now. Right now, this kit lens is set at f4, and it's not a very shallow depth of field right now, but because I separate myself from the background a little bit more, the background is a little bit blurred out compared to the previous shot when I was all the way back there. Another thing you can do to improve the quality of your talking head shot is to add a pop of color to your scene. Adding a light in your background is going to be beneficial, but if you're in a budget, I understand that it might be another light that you need to get. Thankfully, there are some budget options out there for lighting your background. So I'll be using this light right here, which is a utility light that I got from the dollar store. And I'm going to change the color of this light with these folder dividers here. So this is what it looks like with that light in the background. Right away, you can see that it adds a little bit of pop of color in my background. And I was able to get that at a very low cost. And if you get these sort of folder dividers, you're able to use these as color gels and put them in the back and change that color of that light. So right now I just switched to the bigger LED panel. So just to give you a sense of the quality that you can get with this camera with a slightly larger light source and a bigger softbox. You can also pick up a decorative LED light on Amazon to add more color and more variety to your background. Just like that. All right, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is try to experiment with flat picture profiles. So if your camera has flat picture profiles such as log or HLG, it will be great if you can start experimenting with them if you have never done so. This camera, the A5000, it does not have flat picture profiles. So what I did was just go into standard mode and then lower the contrast, the sharpness, and the saturation all the way to its lowest threshold. So without going into too much detail, a flat picture profile allows you to retain more information in the highlights and the shadows, which you can then bring out in post-production when you're color correcting your footage. And by doing this, you're able to get a better image and increase that dynamic range. So even though the footage that comes out of your camera may look desaturated and gray, you're able to bring that back in post with all the retained extra information in the shadows and the highlights. There's a lot more to this, so if you're interested, there's a lot of videos on the internet that talk about this in a lot more detail. Before you go ahead and try this out, make sure you experiment with your own camera first, because shooting in a flat picture profile requires you to properly expose that footage, and it requires you to know how to color correct that footage later in post. And also, you may not need to shoot in a flat picture profile at all. A lot of newer cameras look very good straight out of the camera without having to fiddle around any of these picture profiles. One thing that I would recommend avoid doing is to shoot your videos in those pre-selected or baked in stylistic picture profiles that come in different cameras. In my opinion, these looks are overly stylized and it's difficult to color correct these ones later in post without the image falling apart. My advice is to experiment with your own camera and see what works best for you and your own workflow. Alright, so that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you learned something new, and if you did, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time.